a plane and Supergirl.
This is Jason J. Lewis, the voice of Superman on Justice League Action.
This is Mark Wade, writer of Superman Birthright.
And you're listening to the Krypton Report.
And you're listening to Krypton Report.
Up in the sky, look!
It's a bird!
It's a plane! It's the Krypton Report!
The All Things Kryptonian podcast, including Superman and Supergirl.
We discuss games, movies, cartoons, TV shows, and comics.
Find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and Twitter. If you've enjoyed Krypton Report, please check out the other podcasts available from Southgate Media Group. From Capes and Lunatics, which is everything you could possibly want from a geek podcast, to Nuff Said, Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks, Titans Talk. If you're like me, you can't get enough of your DC. And you can also check out Super Connectivity, where they discuss everything in comics. Also, they do discuss Marvel. That's something you don't hear much from me. So, check it out, southgatemediagroup.com.
Look in the sky. Superman is coming. It's so awesome.
Welcome to the Krypton Report. It is me, Tyler, and I'm sick. And I've been sick for about a month, thanks to the flu shot that I was required to get from work. That has pretty much kept me sick the whole time. So, because it was Crisis, we couldn't miss it. So we had to talk about it. We had Christmas episodes and some other fun stuff planned, but James was sick, and Brian's been dealing with some crap. But I was sick mostly all time. So we're gonna talk right. Excuse me. See, this is what
life has torn us up with the holidays and with being.
But we are too excited to not talk Crisis. So we're going to keep our energy level a little low so that I don't cough all day. But here we go. Brian and James. Lovely, beautiful voices. Crisis on Infinite Earths, Part 4 and 5. Here we go. Okay, so I'm going to get this off the bat real quick. You know, I try not to compare DC and Marvel stuff, but I've heard so many people talk about, like, the split in Crisis being like the first 3 episodes was like Infinity War, and then we do the split, and it's Endgame. And I was like, dang it, I can see it. I see it, and I hate that.
No.
I get it. I hate it.
I can see it, but it's not something I even made a thought or comparison to, honestly. So.
I did it, and what I hated for the most part is I hated that Part 4 comes in, and it feels like a completely different crossover series. Like, I know where we left, but I mean, I'll be flat out right now. Episode 4 was just weird and garbage.
There was some.
There's a couple of things that happened in episode 4 that were really cool. Oliver becoming the Spectre was pretty cool, but I think he should have died, and they shouldn't have had time to really mourn him and got a death scene. And then he should have just appeared like towards the end of this episode as the Spectre. And then he could die again and actually get like the tear-jerking death that they tried to give us.
Mm. That was because the only people who were there when the Spectre showed up was Diggle, Constantine, and was Sarah there or no? I can't remember.
She was.
On Part 3, okay. So she was there. So when he shows up, like, everybody else believes him to be dead. I mean, Barry was there when his body was resurrected, but I don't think he was there for anything else. I mean, I know he wasn't there, and Oliver didn't come back.
They shouldn't have been able to resurrect his body. It should have been like once he died, the Spectre got him. And it was part of a mystery.
Yeah, the Spectre should have.
Why they couldn't get to
the
Oliver.
Spectre should have resurrected.
I mean,
right.
Episode 4, like, I get, like, they got to change pace for budgetary stuff. We've now whittled the cast down. But, man, like, it just felt so, like, half of it, like, Barry, find us in the Speed Force. Why? Like, I was confused. And usually comic book stuff I can follow. But, man, it just felt very, confusing.
All right. So the only thing that I find for episode 4 for all of that was I mean, the reason they did it was to give the rest of the characters, everybody who was involved, because Arrow's got 2 more episodes left, and the penultimate one is the backdoor pilot for Green Arrow and the Canaries. But
do we care?
So the episode 4,
like quick poll, do we care about this show?
I'm gonna check it out, but
I'll watch the pilot. But
I'm not.
It's the first DC property I'm not excited to watch.
So, I mean, yeah, it's a DC property, so I'm going to check it out, and I'm going to give it its due to, see how they handle it. But I'm not as on board as I was with Arrow for so long.
I don't care about it at all.
But
yeah,
I mean, Brian, you haven't really watched the majority of the shows. You did some catch up and stuff, but
no. I watched some stuff. I mean,
have you? Okay.
But yeah, okay. On the only thing I will agree with you, like my catching up on Arrow was kind of just watching recaps because I didn't care about Mia. I didn't care about their kids as adults. I didn't care, and
I didn't care about a future that no longer matters.
Right.
Pretty much, yeah.
And like, I'm not excited at all. I mean, like we've done the Arrow thing to death for like 10 years. Like, what new stuff is Mia going to bring to the table as a new Green Arrow that would change the game? Like, she's a female. Like that's it. Like,
right.
I don't feel like you're going to give me anything new I haven't seen before or hasn't been done before. Like, it's not.
And just to kind of switch gears on that, just for new shows coming up, they've ordered Superman and Lois to series now.
Good.
So
I'm okay with that.
So I'm excited about that.
Because maybe
back to what they were doing for like episode. What they were doing for episode 4, and then because he wasn't even in episode 5, was giving everybody a chance to kind of remember and say goodbye to Oliver. Like that was his goodbye to the rest of the CW. Was like episode 4.
But I don't like that they try to make these massive Arrow episodes inside of a crossover. Like
it kind of
like the 100th was part of Invasion, and it stalls the story. It makes it awkward, and like this was Oliver sitting around in a suit, like talking, like, "Okay, guys, remember us. Now run, baby.
Right?
Run."
Yeah. So like the 100th episode, like for the most part, it was a good 100th episode. But then, as part of the crossover, it did kind of stall it. But I think they fit it in okay at the time. But so that was kind of like how this was it was kind of like Oliver's goodbye to the rest of the CW crew.
Yeah.
So the time in the Speed Force was like other people's interactions. So like Oliver was like holding them, protecting them in the Speed Force with parts of him, with parts of his memories of interacting with other people at different times. So it was kind of, I see what they were doing, and
it just wasn't done right.
From that perspective, it's okay. But I don't know. Yeah, I mean, maybe it could have been done better. But
I totally agree. Because there could have been a lot more to it. But I mean, that's pretty much all of episode 4 until the end. And
well
where they do go back to the beginning of time, which is like the comic book.
yes, Brian, go for it.
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
Well, I gotta say something. So, I felt like when they introduced the Spectre, and I think that was in episode 3, right?
Yes.
Where Jim Corrigan shows up, and we're like, oh, okay, they're gonna make Ollie the Spectre. I was excited for it because I really love the Spectre character. I feel he's underrated, like not really used a whole lot in DC. I mean, he is extremely overpowered, but Jim Corrigan, Spectre, amazing character. When Hal Jordan became the Spectre in the comics, awesome as well. But like, what killed me here is you decide to make Oliver the Spectre, which you can keep him around for here and there, but then you kill him again. And
thank you.
And I just
the unnecessary part of killing him twice.
Right, like, so what's the point of making him the Spectre if you're going to kill him a second time? Like, why didn't you just let his big giant death just die once? Like, the way he died in that first episode was great. Like, that was a great beginning. That was a great kickstart. Nobody expected him to die in that first episode. Everybody was crying. He passed the torch to Mia. Diggle didn't get to say goodbye, which kind of sucked. Diggle didn't get to say goodbye twice. But like, and then you make him the Spectre just so
that was a hard part in episode 5. Sorry to cut you off. It was Diggle's Diggle's response, him being hurt for not being there for Oliver when he died twice.
That made me cry, man. I teared up.
Diggle makes sense. I mean, just the longevity of his relationship. And I mean,
you've been there since season 1.
And Diggle's going to get to see Oliver in the last episode, and they're going to say their goodbyes again because we know Oliver's not dead. He's the Spectre. He's out there. He's somewhere. And I mean, it's smart to make Stephen Amell the Spectre because then next year at the crossover, you can have him back in like a scene or two. Because Jania said basically, the Spectre is a Force ghost, and this is just like Obi-Wan showing up. Is what Oliver was. I'm like,
I don't know. I kind of would have wanted. I mean, I'm not trying to nitpick everything, but I kind of felt like we should have just had Corrigan in this crossover, and then let Oliver die. Let him have his death. His DC. He was a good death.
Yeah.
Bring Corrigan in to be the Spectre, and then later in a future crossover, we can bring Oliver back, and now he's the new Spectre. And, like, everybody's like, whoa, Oliver's back.
Nah, I agree with you up until I think you should have ended the last episode 5. Like, should have had a scene of something where it's like a tease of Oliver returning as the Spectre. That way you can give, he can show up for his last episode of his show. But, like, he should have disappeared and just been like, oh, my gosh, Oliver's dead already. Like, this is it. And then just left. Let episode 4 been, like, Funeral for a Friend. Like, and let it roll into the next one.
Nice.
Let that be, like, the death. Like, them mourning Oliver. And then, like, at the end, it's kind of this tease of, we've seen Corrigan. We see what the Spectre can do. And then he goes and confronts Oliver's spirit and says, something like, you have to return, or it's time to go. You could have done something similar to where Oliver's in in the Quiver run, where he's in the field just shooting arrows at an old-fashioned target.
Yeah.
And they pull him back. And that, you know what I'm saying? Like, that could have been something cool and not told us that Oliver was going to be the Spectre. Let us know the Spectre was coming with Corrigan. And too bad they couldn't have got Corrigan that was / Lobo from Krypton, who was in Constantine, the series, to be Corrigan. That would have been really awesome. Just to have some more continuity from that show. We can kind of theorize that maybe that Constantine is from Earth 666. But, whatever. But
It'll be interesting. I mean, it partially kind of sits on how are they going to do the finale for Arrow. Like, it partially sits on that because this isn't the end of the Oliver character that we know of, because it's what are they doing for him in his own show? But it seems like it's the end for the Oliver character for the rest of the CW.
Right.
There were some questionable things, definitely, I feel, that they did with the character throughout the crossover. I mean, his importance being stated, that he's his importance being stated and being so important to everybody else. But I don't know, killing him off, bringing him back, making him the Spectre,
to kill him off again.
To kill him off again, to everybody, for Oliver, thank you, Oliver, so, I mean, he did a good job as the Spectre. It was kind of cool. Them going, the Spectre and the Anti-Monitor going up against each other, and then basically allowing the universe to be reborn.
Yes. Okay. So hold that thought, because let's talk about the one big surprise that was in this episode that didn't leak, that completely caught me off guard. And that
yeah, me too.
Awesome. So much that I texted James and Brian had to shut his phone off.
I had to shut my phone off.
And I didn't say what it was because I'm not a douchebag who spoils stuff like people do on Facebook, who as soon as something happens, they're tweeting or texting about it. That's why I don't live tweet. That's why I don't post stuff as the show airs. I wait till the next day out of respect for people who can't watch it live or use the
internet. We didn't say anything. We were just like,
holy crap,
like,
holy crap,
holy crap,
holy crap.
Yeah, like, oh my God, are you kidding me? Like, that's freaking awesome.
You text me, holy crap! You guys both said it at the same time. I'm like, okay, I'm behind. I'm gonna have to shut my phone off.
Yeah, Brian shut his phone off. He would have been okay because we didn't go into details. Me and Tyler knew what we were talking about. We didn't discuss it. We were just like, holy crap.
Yeah, I mean,
I couldn't risk anybody messaging me. I couldn't risk any Facebook notification. Nothing.
Oh, I don't blame you. I'm just
because
throwing it out there.
I mean, you ever watch a show, one of these shows with like the official Twitter account? I mean, it's like a beat, like literally a breath after something happens that they're tweeting about it.
I know.
Yeah.
And I'm like, come on. Like, it's like everybody's like in a rush to spoil and talk. I'm like, man, like that's why I hate movie reviews anymore. And like when a show
that's the problem with the binge model.
Yes.
Because everything's spoiled by the time you wake up because somebody freaking watched it from the moment it was dropped till it was over, and then like post a full spoiler review without warnings or anything else. Like
they're like, the end of this explained. How did this person survive this? Read my review that I spent all night watching this 10 hours of TV just so I could post this at 8 a.m. because I'm a D-bag.
Right.
And when I heard Oliver's horrible Spectre voice, I said, holy crap, too.
All right.
It was quite a spoiler. I didn't see it coming.
The big
I didn't think they would change his voice at all.
So the big thing that happened that is Ezra Miller's Flash from Justice League showed up because it looked like,
holy crap,
the way that I understood the scene is he was in the Speed Force. So it talks about how basically the Speed Force can connect the multiverse. So it makes me wonder if there's one Speed Force that you can be, because think about how Jay Garrick's been in the Speed Force and come into contact with Barry before. So if a speedster's in the Speed Force, they can sense each other. So basically, Ezra Barry is in the Speed Force, and I'm thinking that this happened shortly after Justice League because he mentions Victor. In Justice League, he references the Speed Force that he's learning about it. And I saw a meme today that I thought was pretty cool that I didn't think about. And I'm going to just share the text from it real quick. It says, Ezra says, "You're also the what?" And Grant says, "The Flash." In the DCEU, Barry was never referred to as the Flash. So now
that is correct.
He will most likely use this name in his movie because of this moment.
Yeah.
So that would be a great line in the movie if they say, "Where'd you get that name?" He's like, kind of said it to myself, or, something like quirky like that.
Because they have behind the scenes photos that it appears that they were actually on set, because the way it was cut together, the way they like changed, because like they changed like the aspect ratio. They went to like cinematic aspect ratio,
and they did it on purpose because he's the cinematic Flash.
Exactly. So they changed the ratio, and then just the fact of the effects, the blur effects and everything that were in the surroundings, like it wasn't sure if like they were shot against each other on a green screen or whatever, but it appears that in the behind the scenes photos, like they were actually together on set to shoot this scene. So Ezra's like completely involved in the Crisis on Infinite Earths, which will affect on, I mean, even just the moment for the name, will have an effect on his movie and his character moving forward.
And I feel since he's the character that they're trying to push, trying to like build his property, this was a great way of doing that, of just reminding us and reminding people if they like
Absolutely.
Ezra, that's something they want to pursue here. And I think he's the only character really from the movies that would have worked.
Yeah, for sure.
Just because it is Barry, the Flash, and everything. And I was excited. I mean, it was a great shocker. I was really excited. I think Ezra can be a really good Flash. I just think there's moments in Justice League where he's really good, especially when it's him and Billy Crudup. The original trailer footage, but then you can tell the reshot footage, he's horrible. And that's because they made him just this comic relief character and took away his actual character.
Yeah. Well, Ezra, just like Ray Fisher and stuff, I mean, they've been all about their characters. Ezra came on to do the character as Zack Snyder had the character portrayed, not the way that he was portrayed in the movie, in the theatrical release. That was part of the reason why he didn't know what they were doing with the Flash when they had Goldstein and the other guy on, because I think they were trying to more or less follow the route that Justice League had given him.
Yep.
That's why he wanted to do a script and a story with Grant Morrison for the Flash.
Which would have been the
craziest
thing we would have ever saw, and we would have had to have like our IQs increased to understand it.
Right. I kind of wonder if that isn't part of what they're going forward with Ezra Miller's Flash. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But we can talk more about Ezra later when we talk about that movie, because
right.
So that
I loved how they came together and they were. And they both said it at the same time, and like Ezra Miller was like stoked because he's still new. Like he's Barry Allen in the first season, and he's different, like he doesn't know about the multiverse. He doesn't know about like the Speed Force and all of its capabilities. So like him meeting another version of himself, him getting his name, his superhero name from another version of himself, like it was a pretty awesome scene, I feel.
Oh, yes. And I hope it pays off more. And what I liked is, I guess it was Warner Brothers' idea to have it. They called Mark Guggenheim and asked if they could get Ezra in. Mark Guggenheim called Grant. Grant was on board. They snuck Ezra to Vancouver onto the Flash set with a small crew and shot it after they had wrapped Crisis.
Oh, that's awesome.
And, fit it in there. And I loved it because we had gotten so many like awesome like moments.
Like, and so many of the cameos were just so quick.
And that's what was cool.
You know? Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see them on the alternate Earths and stuff, which they gave us a bunch more this time, which was really cool too. But it was awesome to see that and him actually have an interaction as a cameo, you know?
I wish they would have told us the number of Earth that he's from, but it's cool. So
I thought the best part of that conversation was when they're looking at each other's suits, and Grant's looking at the suit, and he's like, "Oh, you know, that's kind of like high techy and whatever." And then Ezra looks at him and is like, "Man, your suit looks so comfortable. It looks so breathable."
Right.
And because I don't like Ezra's suit, I thought that was great.
I don't mind Ezra's suit because it was supposed to be more like Injustice style Flash, but it was something different, so I can respect that. So we get to the beginning of time, and in this episode, we get like a flashback of Marnavu and how he travels through a portal and basically releases the Anti-Monitor, and it's all a little convoluted, I think. We find out that
they kind of tied like the early Owens, the early Guardian characters, like their ancient race who initially looked back to the beginning of time or whatever. They kind of simplified it to going back to see the dawn of time, and it's splitting and creating like him becoming the Anti-Monitor, or him becoming the Monitor and the Anti-Monitor being created at the same time.
Yep, being his antithesis.
So
exactly.
I wanted to ask you guys, like, so is that like the rebirth origin of the Anti-Monitor? Or was that just a shit?
It's the end of the New 52 when they had the Darkseid Wars, when the Anti-Monitor and Darkseid throw down, and the Anti-Monitor is renamed and is now Mobius, kind of like the Mobius chair. And,
okay, gotcha.
And I have to read Darkseid Wars again, which is really good, but basically...
Me too.
But that's where this Monitor's look and everything comes from, is... And can we just say that the Anti-Monitor looked more like Apocalypse than Apocalypse did in X-Men Apocalypse? Just throwing that
right.
When Jen and I were watching this and he got all big, Jen's like, okay, so when did Thanos and Apocalypse have a kid? Like, did I miss something?
So, I will say the battle at the end was kind of cool. Like, so Lex Luthor gave himself powers in the Book of Destiny. But then we have Ryan Choi, who has no weapons, who has no powers, but he's fighting shadow demons.
And he's a scientist. Like,
it makes sense.
He's not a fighter.
And then Kara just uses her heat vision, which is dope because that's what I would do. But she can fight too, you know.
Yeah, she's had hand-to-hand combat training. Ryan Choi, I mean, likely doubtful, but I mean, who knows? Growing up, I mean, maybe he took karate as a kid, but you know, he's. But I guess it's just because he's a paragon, he can swing wildly and punch at the shadow demons, and they'll just, you know, poof, disappear, because he's a paragon.
Well, maybe he went to Azkaban and he learned how to fight Dementors. I don't know.
So I mean the battle at the beginning of time, it was all about the Anti-Monitor versus the Spectre, because I mean, just yet again, and not for the last time, does everybody fight against the shadow demons just as a faceless army to fight against, to keep them all busy for some action moves. And then they have to kind of focus on their pillars of who they are to spark the new universe.
Which was cool. But they could have done something more than just kind of stare. You know, they could have held hands and gave a part of their soul. You know, I don't know, something.
Yeah, you would have thought that they would have done like maybe some beam of light from each of them, like some colored beam of light from each of them to the portal or whatever above. So that way, like, all of their forces, you know, joined and ignited the new universe.
So,
yeah, that was kind of weird. Like, they were just standing there. It was just weird. I don't know.
I mean, it was kind of like I said was probably going to happen, was like it was just going to be some kind of intense focus, some kind of thought, you know, that was going to like save the day. Because I mean, that's kind of how it is sometimes in the comic books. It's the hope and it's the love and it's the belief and stuff that kind of gets them over. You know what I mean? Not necessarily knocking out the enemy.
Yeah, you're right.
So they rebirth a new universe, which is cool, which leaves a lot of things for discussion. And I feel like those.
So let's discuss.
I kind of like I will, but I feel like most of that stuff's going to be all revealed as the episodes go on, because that's going to be the new thread. Because we learned that nobody remembers but the Paragons, and then those who don't remember get Martian slapped in the head by John Jones to remember.
Yeah, all the main characters.
Yeah, that was important.
So I think it's interesting because you're going to have maybe characters or versions of people that are different because they're not the ones you exactly knew. We saw that Lex Luthor rewrote his existence somehow so that he comes back. And he's a humanitarian. Everybody loves him. You know,
that's gonna be interesting moving forward with the Supergirl and the Superman show. Yes. Because at the time we've come to meet him, he's already been this villain who was prosecuted for crimes against humanity, which is like a big thing that's happened like so far down the road in his career. You know, one of the last things that happens, as it were, before crises events and things get rebooted, you know? So he was already at that point. Now he's that character, but he rewrote his history. So now people believe that he's this brilliant philanthropist, businessman. So like you can get that horribly evil Lex into the role where nobody knows that he is that character yet.
Yep. I'm excited.
It was fantastic.
Yeah, because now we have the most evil, diabolical Lex, and nobody knows but the heroes. Kind of like how Lex should be, where everyone sees everyone sees him as a savior, but he's not.
Yeah.
So we get a fun part of Kara waking up in her apartment, and Weather Witch is attacking. How did Weather Witch get into this crossover? Out of all the villains, that's who we get, Weather Witch.
Right.
Yeah.
But so Weather Witch is there, and Kara shows up, and then Flash shows up. I was like, "Hey, what are you doing on my Earth?" "I don't know. What are you doing on my Earth?" And then we realized that.
Yeah, he said she's one of mine. How'd she get on my Earth? What, your Earth? You're on my Earth, and like what? And then we get a Marv Wolfman appearance.
Which was dope. I was so excited. I had to like explain who he was to my wife, and she thought that was awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, he came in, and I was like, hold on, that guy looks familiar. And then he started talking, and then he said, and I was like, that voice sounds familiar. And then he said, make it out to Marv. I was like, no shit, it's Marv Wolfman. Like, that's freaking cool.
They need to just have Marv be DC Stan Lee. Like, make these little cameos here and there. And maybe George Perez, too. Just do these little tiny cameos, just like Stan Lee. Because I thought that was fantastic. I had to explain to my wife who that was. Like, I didn't catch it right away. And I was like, yeah, like, same thing. And now, I just thought that was awesome. Such a great touch.
So we have this new Earth, Earth Prime, which is the CW Earth. Because now all the CW shows are on the same Earth. And let me just say, my man showed up, and I was happy. Black Lightning walked in, and I loved it. I love that he was back, that we didn't know he was coming back. Because as much as you may not like that show, I love that character. So I'm glad that he is now part of the Earth and can make references. I want to see like if he still has his love for Superman now that he knows that Superman is real.
Right. And I think I love the Black Lightning show. So, but yeah, to have all of the shows on the same Earth, you know, because we'll get to that here shortly, but to have all of the shows on the same Earth is important. And I'm glad that they went that route, that they all woke up on the same Earth.
Because if they didn't, there'd be no point to this.
Mm-hmm.
That's the one thing I wanted for this crossover was it to end with one Earth. And they kind of had their cake and ate it too. They kind of cheated.
Yeah.
You know, they have the Prime Earth, which is basically the CW Earth. We now have a new Earth 2, which is Stargirl. So that kind of explains that. So,
which is kind of cool because, like, in the New 52, they had Earth 2, and that was the Earth with the JSA. And I'm correct, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So
I mean, who was all with her? Who was all with her? It looked like
that was Wildcat, Hourman.
Okay.
I can't remember the other one, and then I can't remember the name of the robot either.
I'll be honest, I'm not a huge
I didn't know who the robot was at all.
I'm not a JSA person.
I thought it was really cool. They've got the female Wildcat in there, though.
Yes.
They don't have the Ted Grant Wildcat. Well, they've got the female, the successor.
Ted Grant.
Which I can't remember her name from in the comic book.
Ted Grant, the one person who, did he die or did he not in season 2 of Arrow? Because that was the most awkward disappearance of a character ever. You know, and we see, so even DC Universe are all on separate Earths. And
Swamp Thing was on a different Earth. Doom Patrol and
Earth 19. Doom Patrol the series is on Earth 21, and then Earth 9 is Titans. And they had speculated before that Doom Patrol the series was going to be on another Earth, and this just kind of fulfilled it. So,
yeah, because the only kind of tie that they ever had. So originally, I guess the original season finale of Titans season 1 actually had a crossover with the Doom Patrol. They were supposed to show up from what I've heard. I don't know if any of that ever got shot or anything, so I don't know. But that's what I've heard. And then in Doom Patrol, when in episode 2, when Cyborg shows up and he's going over some news in his grid, they have Rachel's mother's death in the news, but that is literally the only connection that was ever made, except for the Doom Patrol episode of Titans,
which featured a different chief, so it kind of worked. But
yeah,
so that was interesting. Swamp Thing being on Earth 19 kind of sucked. They could have just thrown him on a different but it's all it's like the CW birthed the DC Universe series, because the only other Earth that we saw from the new multiverse is Brandon Routh Superman is back on his Earth.
So was it Okay, it was Earth 96 for the I forgot almost, since it's been so long, that it was Earth 96.
That was Brandon Routh, Superman?
Yeah, that was the Kingdom Come, that it was Brandon Routh, Superman. Sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there. So when it came up, Earth 96, like even until just right now, I was like, why was it 96? And now I just remembered. But it was cool to see him back. It was cool to see the S, the same S, but it had the yellow in it.
Yep. So that's cool.
And then it was Earth 12. They gave us footage from Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern. So they at least...
I think it's a nice way of having some sort of footage of Green Lantern.
Of the Green Lanterns, yeah.
Yeah.
They showed the footage of him flying away from Earth. Nothing up close, so you didn't see who it was, but it was a Green Lantern flying away from Earth. They showed the planet Oa, and then they showed the Guardians. Yeah. And the central battery or like the area where they congregate and stuff.
Just enough to acknowledge the Green Lanterns and the fact that we'll be getting that Green Lantern show, so it is kind
which they did have some kind of news about recently since the end of the crossover on Tuesday. So they had the crossover, they acknowledged the Green Lanterns, and now they've got some news that it's going to be like a couple of Green Lanterns. I haven't read the article yet, but I've seen it. 2
Green Lanterns and Sinestro. So
yeah, that's what I've seen.
Me.
But I mean, all this is going on in episode 5, and I mean, episode 5 of the crossover, I mean, really felt like okay. So for the most part, every episode felt like you had to really kind of pick to see what episode of whose show it was, because the Batwoman episode of the crossover is probably the best episode. It is the best episode of the crossover. But you would have never thought it was the Batwoman episode. The Arrow episode kind of like says, hey, it's all about Oliver. And then this one tones back to Legends. And I don't know. I felt like this episode was like, it could have been something really great, but it felt like just like a kind of epilogue catch up, until the end where they fight the Anti-Monitor again, where he shows up and he gets all big, and Ryan Choi and Ray Palmer and Nash Wells basically create the microverse, shrinking the Anti-Monitor forever, for all time. But I mean, it just felt off. Like, it was fine, but the tone changed. And they put Sarah right up front, which out of every character in the Arrowverse, Sarah is the most unbalanced written character. I feel like every time somebody writes her, they change her, and that's what
she's had so many lives too.
and that's the one thing I don't like about the character. It's nothing against her; it's that there's no consistency in the writing.
Katie Lotz. She's done a good job with whatever she's been given, though. I got to give her that. She's great.
So, we get our Legends, characters. Really, it's just the few others doing nothing. And there was a lot of people in the credits for Legends who didn't.
Who didn't show up.
Yeah.
Yeah, because all they had was Nate. Who's Sarah's girlfriend?
Ava.
Ava, that's it. Ava. All they had was Nate, Ava, Ray, and Sarah. That's all they had. And let's not forget Bebo. No, they had Mick, right?
Yeah, they had Mick.
Yeah, they had Mick. But they also had Bebo.
You know what? Bebo was cool in the couple episodes. I really didn't care for Bebo in this.
It was funny they snuck him into the crossover.
Yeah, it was. I mean, my favorite part is when Kara gets excited, like, Kate's here. Look, everybody, Kate's here.
Yeah.
And everyone's like, oh, okay.
I like that they're kind of excited that they're on one Earth, you know?
Yes.
I kind of like that.
Well, Kara is, because, you know, her and Barry are like best pals. And
yeah,
she loves Kate. You know, the rest of them had already been on the same Earth. And Black Lightning is like, you guys are cool.
Yeah, right. that was it, too, at the end. Yeah, you guys are cool. Like, how often does this happen? How often is the world threatened? More often than you think.
He's like,
oh, okay.
All right, I'm in. I like that, Jeff.
Right?
I love his character. I like that he's older. You know, he's a father. All that fun stuff.
Yeah.
And then, can we talk about the greatest moment of this episode that's a blink and you'll miss it? You guys ready?
Yeah.
Barry fixed it and brought baby Sarah back.
Yeah. Yeah. So that was awesome.
We had baby Sarah.
That was a very nice touch.
All grown up. Well, not all grown up, but, you know, the age she should be had she never been exited. And then we had, you know, John Jr. We had both of their children.
Yeah. Yeah. They had both children.
And speaking of both children, somebody else has two sons.
Yeah, right?
Superman. What?
My question is, how does he have two sons? Because the only two sons that Superman has ever had was Jason and Jonathan, and Earth 96 exists. So why would Jason not be on that planet with his actual father? So what two sons?
And he had Chris Kent when he had kind of like adopted General Zod's son. But I think that's gonna be a plot thread. Like, did Kara build, you know, a second child? Did Lex build an evil son? Or something for Superman?
Or is it a CW? I don't know. Is it a CW Connor Kent?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, it's going to be a plot thread of something that's going to be different and unique.
Yeah, I don't know.
It's going to be a good thread. I feel like without being overly handed, they were able to do some cool stuff to set up the Superman show.
Yeah.
Because
it definitely is going to have people questioning.
I think an interesting thing would be if he has one son that has powers and he has one son that doesn't have powers. Because, like, you know, I mean, he's having a kid with Lois. You know, it would be pretty interesting if, you know, one kid has the same powers as Superman, and Superman has that bond with that kid because they both have the Kryptonian powers. But then you have this one kid that doesn't have powers. Maybe that kid's jealous. Maybe that kid starts looking to Lex Luthor as a mentor.
Yep.
And, you know, we get this brother to brother rivalry. I mean, that could be an interesting aspect, or it could be a Jonathan Connor situation. Who knows? But I kind of like one kid maybe not having powers, and we get this big power struggle, and Lex uses that against them. Something like that. I don't know.
I think it's a great idea. So
it is.
All right. I know there's a lot of little details. Will probably come up more as we discuss the individual shows going forward. I think we hit the high points. You know, this episode was kind of weird in the sense that this was the season opener for Legends.
There is one major point that we missed, and it includes a minor point, was they have a shrine to Oliver.
Oh, yeah.
His suit is in a case, and they've got a arrow-shaped torch lit for him, and they are inside. They have a table set up with chairs with insignias, and they are set up inside of the Hall of Justice.
And we get the super.
And we get Gleek, the super monkey.
Which is cool. And then Brian immediately
hell yeah, man.
Like,
I'm so excited about
he's
that.
Like, are we getting the Wonder Twins? I'm like, why not? They did it in Smallville.
Yeah. Maybe bring in Gleek.
I know it's so stupid, but I'm excited to see the Wonder Twins. I really am. Because they're just going to be these crazy characters, and it's gonna be fun. They'll probably put them on like Legends or something. Who knows?
Probably.
I mean, they did a decent job with them in the one episode they were in Smallville.
Yeah, I mean, they can do it. And why not at this point? And they would be perfect for Legends because I feel like, I don't want to go on a big tangent, but I feel like Legends is the show that could have been the greatest of all these shows. Like, it could have just been the show where they reinvented it every season. They constantly brought in new cameo characters and...
Yeah, cameo characters and a rotating roster.
Like the Wonder Twins, Booster Gold, Adam Strange, whoever they felt like just popping in for an episode. Like, but they stuck with the time travel. And I feel like they should have, like, each season should have been almost like a soft reboot of sorts. And, like, one season should have been, and I've said this for years, should have been when Constantine joined and everything. It should have been all more Justice League Dark based. We should have got, and I've been preaching this since Arrow season 3. Where is Zatanna? She is the easiest character to bring in when you have magic. Where is Zatanna? And I just feel like
where the heck's Jason Blood?
Yeah, like Jason Blood and Etrigan. I mean, we know you can pull it off, okay? And that's why Legends makes me mad, is because they ditched wearing a lot of the superhero costumes. Nobody hardly ever wears their costume. Nate barely, Citizen Seals up. Ray's the only one who ever wears his suit. So it's just kind of like they just kind of killed it for me. Like, I still watch the show and I enjoy it, but it's like this could have been the greatest comic book show because of just what you're doing with on this week's episode.
Yeah, there's a lot they could have done. They more just embraced like the time periods and stuff like that for the longest time, and then they just kind of gone crazy with it. Maybe if they actually rein it back in, because they got picked up for another season already, and the show hasn't even begun. I mean, basically, part 5 was the first episode of the season,
right? Which is crazy to think about. I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah, right.
I just think that with all the actors that you have, like Brandon Routh is leaving, his wife is leaving, so those characters are going. Get rid of the Time Bureau, get rid of Mona, like get rid of Gary, like the characters are just on the show that are not, and just make a real, like, keep it fun and free, but like bring it back down to feel like it's a DC property and not just this weird show. Yeah.
Well, they could change it again, like bring it over to what we're talking about. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Like because it started as like the DC show with all these people, and then it kind of went crazy and comical, and they've brought in some weird people like Mona and Gary and the Time Bureau. Nothing that strictly has mattered or affected much outside of Legends.
Right, and they're always shooting the stick on the crossovers.
And bring it down to the DC, like, the rotating roster of heroes and using some super suits again, and like make it feel like a superhero show again.
All I'm asking for is this season, I want them to cross over. Just bring Derek Mears on for an episode like the way Constantine appeared in Arrow season 4, and have Swamp Thing and Constantine together.
Oh, that would be great.
But so, I mean, I think there's going to be more stuff to discuss as we dive into back to our individual shows. I've seen one quick clip from Black Lightning where Black Lightning and his daughter are talking to Gamby about the multiverse and now the New Earth. And I think there's going to be, I'm interested to see what the repercussions on Supergirl are with her and Lena.
Because that's supposed to be different. So
I'm hoping
now she's turned back into a supporter of her, as opposed to somebody who has hated her for lying to her. So,
and will Kara have like guilt for, was that her idea when rebuilding? Like, what was their like input of each Paragon into rebuilding the multiverse? So, did Kara?
Yeah, is Lena gonna? Does Lena know who she is now again? or is she going to reveal it to her and Lena be an ally?
Or is everything gonna be peachy keen, and then John accidentally something happens and Lena remembers everything like the Paragons and stuff do, so she has the knowledge of the previous events. I don't know. A lot to speculate. It's late. I feel like crap. I'm trying here.
You've been strong, Tyler.
I have been sick for far too long.
I've muted a couple of times to cough.
Dude, I'm constantly muting. Bryan, you still with us?
Oh, yeah. Hey, guys.
All right. So we're going to get this episode, guys, and then we're going to record another episode here quickly soon, hopefully the next day or two when I feel better. That James and I were trying to get recorded before I got sick, which is just catching up on the news and trailers that we haven't got yet to discuss. So just remember, everyone, look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look up in the sky.
Look at the sky.